think I discovered something. Let me just believe me.
Let's dance.
Hello? Yeah, you got me. All right, good. Hello everyone and welcome on Laughing Museums. My name is Cedric, you're watching Laughing Museums. Thank you so much for doing that. I discovered something. I am actually finishing finally my book on the history of painting. And I made a strange discovery. I spent 3 days, that's why I'm so pumped, because I spent 3 days at a festival on the Riviera called OVNI, which is around video artists, and it was fascinating. I was actually invited by an artist friend of mine, Keiko. Thank you so much for showing me and sharing your work on Fukushima. It's absolutely fascinating. But I met so many artists, I talked with so many artists, and it was like, wow, it was just amazing to see so much energy and so many crazy, intense work. I loved almost every single piece that I've seen in that weekend, which is absolutely amazing. But it made me realize something as I was reading a book by Costamagna, which is a fantastic writer, he's a director of the Fine Art Museums in Corsica. Very important collection. He wrote a book on the taste of Napoleon. And as I'm working mostly in the Louvre, as you might know by now, I realize that Napoleon, and that's Pierre-Yves Berger, which is another fantastic teacher from Switzerland who passed now, we used to say that Napoleon has no taste whatsoever. And I had that feeling, but it's like, Napoleon is part of history. Like you can't touch this kind of thing. It's like you can't touch it. Plus the guy is dead, etc. And the truth is, I've read almost the same thing under Costamagna, but in a more subtle way, I would say, something like this. I'll put the link to the book of that Costamagna, and it's still in French, but I'm pretty sure it's going to be translated because his work is so good. And he says something, and one day, and I'm going to quote the Emperor Napoleon I. I'm going to quote the Emperor who used to say on David, which is the one who made the biggest French painting in the Louvre, which I am detailing on that channel. You find it. It's one of the first video I made. So David became the official painter of the First Empire. But what is interesting is, like, before that, he was working on a famous painting which is called Leonidas and the Thermopyles, which you might know under the super duper famous adaptation in the movie 300. And it's great that we still have a fascination for such things at those kind of great battles, right? But you know what Napoleon said to David when he knew he was wasting, and I'm quoting the Emperor, his time painting Leonidas? He said, you should not paint losers. Okay, you should not paint losers. And that's the whole theory about winners and losers, right? And there's going to be a full chapter on that in my book, right? What is winning, what is losing, and that's really interesting, right? I do believe that people who are building civilizations, such as emperors, such as senators, should believe that winning is the key to make a great civilization. I get that. I'm cool with it, no problem. Although I do not think it is a work of artists to be in that winning process. Why is that? Because that's a theory I just developed by reading a lot of Nietzsche lately. Maybe you read somewhere that Nietzsche was destroying everything that has been done before in philosophy, and he wrote a lot on art, tragedy, music, a little bit fine arts as well, and that he destroyed everything with a hammer. I wish I have a hammer right now to prove my point. And that hammer is nothing to do with a construction work tool, but it is a hammer that you find in a piano, which is tapping on the string, which is making tonality, which is making a sound, right? And that sound for Nietzsche was supposed to be a way to test an idea and to test a work of art, right? So how do you know when something is working for you? How do you know when you're looking at a good artist or a bad artist? how do you know all these answers? What is the best way to appreciate a work, right? So now I got this tool that I developed with years, but also by reading Nietzsche a lot. And this tool is that little hammer inside a piano. And if your body is somma semma, if your body is a gel, like you can read under Plato, then I think that gel is a piano, and inside there is that string, right? And you find that string, and you hit that string with your hammer, and then it makes a sound. And that sound should be your F minor, or what it is your note is, right? And with that note, you can appreciate everything, right? And when you see your work, you really use that kind of little technique of your interior hammer with that. That makes me think, by the way, of one of the many artists I met, and he gave me his catalog. And it's funny when I'm playing straight on this, right? It is a piano, and this artist literally dropped a piano in under the sea because he had a friend who was a musician. And the artist is himself a musician. He had a friend who's a musician, and he used scuba diving to find inspiration, and sadly he passed in a scuba diving experience. And so to pay homage to his friend, he decided to literally put a piano under the sea to test and play the piano under the sea, which is a fantastic idea and a way to test that famous Nietzschean hammer that I kind of discovered through the fantastic book of Barbara Stiegler. By the way, I'll put it here as well. It's just been published in French, I'm not sure. It's going to be translated in English, but I hope so. And so there is a way really for you to appreciate everything. And I took the example of David, right? And some work of David I really appreciate, some work of David I don't, right? David got in many fights with the Emperor Napoleon. Napoleon was really not paying well. You can see all this in my video on the coronation of Napoleon I, right? So he passed it to his best student, which was called Jean-Auguste Dominique Ingres, which is the fantastic painter of the Odalisque and the not so fantastic painter of Joan of Arc. Not everything is fantastic, but you know what? It's great. And I was just thinking what I was thinking about that famous note that is supposed to be, I don't know, my F minor, which is a way to decide how I judge work and if it's like winning or losing, to quote Napoleon. Then I was thinking, you know what? Maybe the first work that come to mind, and there's two actually, two pieces by Delacroix and one piece by Vincent van Gogh. I'll start with the Delacroix. My favorite Delacroix is that Sardanapalus, which he made in 1827 to get into the contest of fine arts. They hated the work so much, he was condemned for pornography, and they forbid him to compete for 10 years. Thank God, my country is filled with revolution and civil war, and so 3 years later, 1830, he was allowed to compete again. And he came back with Liberty Guiding the People, our most famous French painting on the entire planet. Delacroix is also our most famous French painter, by the way. Or other French painters, the whole immigrants, Picasso, Van Gogh, etc. Maybe Matisse is a little bit of an exception of that, but apart from these guys, are mostly immigrants. And so I'm thinking, why do I love the Sardanapalus, but I literally don't like Liberty Guiding? But the more I grow, the more I dislike that painting. Technically, Delacroix is a genius. There's not even any doubt on that. But I don't know. Sardanapalus is liberty, is freedom. The freedom of a guy who painted something insane, completely passionate about being a romantic painter with a lot of passion in his work and a lot of colors, taking that crazy Lord Byron play and pushing it to the other level. That was for me fantastic. When liberty, the flag, everything is kind of trying to seduce the jury a little bit, to be pro-government a little bit too much for me, which I don't think is the goal of an artist. And David, moving from Leonidas to the coronation, is kind of an example of that, of course, right? Last example to finish on that Nietzschean hammer, I really want you to keep that in mind, is the work by Van Gogh. My favorite painting in d'Orsay will be the famous Église at Sauveur-sur-Oise. I'm putting it here, of course. And I always wonder why that work is so amazing to me, because I realize that. Because when I went to Auvers to see the church per se, not much happened. It's just a Catholic church. We have many of those. It's kind of austere. There's not much about it, right? Those buildings suffered because they used to be painted, they're not anymore, etc. But he magnified it in a crazy way with outlining with a yellow, kind of a really super clear kind of yellow, the church, which is kind of making it dancing. And what is dance? Dance is a limit between, is a closer way for men to being like artistic in a way, but by taking the risk of falling. What is amazing in dance is like, those people are so beautiful when they're dancing because they're kind of defying the cruelest rule of human being, which is clearly gravity. Believe me, I took a pretty bad fall lately on my skateboard, so I know what this is, right? And that's why we admire skateboarders the same way, right? Defying gravity, something human beings were, and that's why we admire spaceship, the same reason, defying gravity. Back on that painting is like that. And by making that kind of a church Auvers-sur-Oise, it's kind of a dancing sort of, I would say. And that's why, by that, he's like questioning his face, questioning painting, questioning his life, questioning everything. And it's funny because Vincent questioned a lot of things in his life, but in one of his letters, he told his brother Theo, I have a feeling one day people are going to love my work. And I don't know any other example of the entire planet of the entire planet loving one artist. And if there's one artist, and I'm pretty sure if you go in the street and you ask anywhere on the planet where you're watching that video right now, what is the international artist, you might get the answer of Vincent van Gogh, right? Just lost my light. I hope you don't care about that. Thank you very much for watching Laughing Museums. If you laugh a little bit, if you learn a little bit, please do your thing, subscribe, whatever, talk about it. I do believe in that. And no matter what you do, don't forget, if you're not doing it with a smile, well, you're probably doing it wrong. You guys take care.